Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. President Trump landed in Paris overnight. It is the third time he's been in Europe since taking office. The president and first lady are spending 2 days with French President Emmanuel Macron. Mark Martin has the story.
President Trump and French President Macron will meet ahead of Bastille Day celebrations in Paris. They'll look at possible solutions to the Syrian crisis and overall counterterrorism strategies. The president is scheduled to hold a news conference Wednesday afternoon. He will likely field questions about Russia. Donald Jr., the president's eldest son, is under the microscope for a meeting with a Russian lawyer who has been called a Russian government attorney. The lawyer potentially had damaging information about Hillary Clinton. Trump defended his son in an interview with Reuters, saying, "I think many people would have held that meeting." The president also addressed Russia in an interview with CBN founder Pat Robertson.
Yeah, I think we got along very well, and I think that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, people said, oh, they shouldn't get along. Well, who are the people that are saying that?
Back in Paris, Trump and Macron have differing views on trade and climate change. They hope to set those aside and find common ground. The president is scheduled to attend Bastille Day festivities on Friday before heading home to the United States. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Republicans on Capitol Hill are pushing ahead with their new health care bill. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell reworked much of President Barack Obama's health care law, but many leaders are not on board with the changes, and Democrats oppose the revised measure. The Senate needs 50 Republican votes to pass it. President Trump sat down with CBN's Pat Robertson for an exclusive interview, and he weighed in on the bill.
What'll happen if they don't?
Well, I don't even want to talk about it because I think it would be very bad. I will be very angry about it, and a lot of people will be very upset. But I'm sitting waiting for that bill to come to my desk. I hope that they do it. They've been promising it for years. They've been promising it ever since Obamacare, which has failed. It's a failed experiment. It is totally gone. It's out of business. And we have to get this done, repeal and replace.
Conservative Senator Rand Paul is among GOP lawmakers not in support of the bill. Many others are threatening to vote against it if their demands are not met. The president also addressed a number of other issues, from Russian President Vladimir Putin to the North Korean threat, as well as the problem of terrorism funding from Middle Eastern countries. He debunked the claim that Russia wanted him to win the election. The president says Putin would have been happier if Hillary Clinton had won.
We're the most powerful country in the world, and we are getting more and more powerful because I'm a big military person. As an example, if Hillary had won, our military would be decimated. Our energy would be much more expensive. That's what Putin doesn't like about me. And that's why I say, why would he want me? Because from day one, I wanted a strong military. He doesn't want to see that.
Now, you can watch the full interview today on the 700 Club, airing on ABC's Freeform, or simply go to cbnnews.com. President Donald Trump's pick to lead the FBI testified before senators during his confirmation hearing Wednesday. One thing Chris Wray reassured them: he would be an independent government official who has taken no loyalty oath to the president. CBN's national security correspondent Eric Rosales has more now from Capitol Hill.
I do not consider Director Mueller to be on a witch hunt.
That's President Trump's nominee for FBI Director Chris Wray at his confirmation hearing, speaking about the special counsel investigating the Trump campaign's possible collusion with Russia.
If I got a call from somebody saying the Russian government wants to help Lindsey Graham get reelected, they've got dirt on Lindsey Graham's opponent, should I take that meeting?
Well, Senator, I would think you'd want to consult with some good legal advisors before you did that.
It was a highly anticipated hearing, given that President Trump earlier this year fired former FBI Director James Comey. Wray, a former Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division under George W. Bush, assured senators he would not be pulling any punches if he's confirmed as the new FBI Director. Wray faced sharp questions, including those from Republicans, on his decision-making process, the independence of the FBI, and also the Russian meddling in the U.S. election. He vowed to keep the FBI independent.
To the members of this committee, any threat or effort to interfere with our elections from any nation state or any non-state actor is the kind of thing the FBI would want to know.
Do you believe the Russians did it when it came to the hacking into the DNC and Podesta's emails? Do you believe the conclusions?
Well, Well, Senator, as I said to your colleague,
Do you have any reason to doubt
I have
it?
no reason to doubt the conclusions of the intelligence.
His supporters refer to his temperament as one of his biggest attributes, calling him razor sharp, but also a low-key manager who looks to diffuse tense situations, not escalate them. Wray needs to be confirmed by the Senate in order to serve as FBI director. Eric Rosales, CBN News, Washington.
A group of faith leaders are lifting the president up in prayer. Monday, Tony Perkins, Pastor John Hagee, Michelle Bachmann, and many others gathered to pray for President Trump. Johnny Moore, former senior vice president at Liberty University, posted pictures of the prayer time Tuesday and says it was more than just a photo op, saying it, quote, shows a substantive relationship between the evangelical community and this administration. He added faith leaders are enjoying frequent access to officials in the Trump administration. Capitol Hill is getting back to business after a short recess, but without one key player, Representative Steve Scalise. The House Majority Whip was released from ICU Wednesday evening, but remains in serious condition following last month's shooting at a congressional baseball practice. It is unclear when he will return to work and who is filling his role while he's out. CBN's Jenna Browder has that answer.
At a time when Congress is so divided, there's one person whose job is to build consensus among House Republicans. That's Majority Whip Steve Scalise. But with him still out following this shooting at a congressional baseball practice, his duties of keeping things smooth between leaders and members fall to this man.
Oh, he's like a brother.
Chief Deputy Whip, Representative Patrick McHenry.
He's one of my closest friends here on the Hill. We work closely every day we're in session, spend multiple hours a day together every day we're in session. So for him to be out is a real loss, not just for our conference, not just for the Congress, but for me personally as a friend.
McHenry, in his 7th term, has a record of never voting for a tax increase. He's also known for his passion to promote entrepreneurship, something he developed as a kid watching his dad run a small business in rural North Carolina. Veterans are perhaps some of McHenry's biggest supporters after he spoke out against VA leadership under the last administration.
I always tease him. He's about 5'6", and I always say he must have been a basketball star.
We spoke with Representative Don Bacon and other lawmakers at this blood drive McHenry organized in honor of Scalise. And while some of them may give him a hard time for being short, Bacon says he knows McHenry will have no problem tackling this tall order.
We're going to miss Steve Scalise, but we got a good alternate filling in.
When he's not in Washington, McHenry is back in North Carolina with his wife and young daughter. His Catholic faith is an important part of his life, something he touched on talking about Scalise.
He's tough. He's got a wonderful spirit about him, but it was really the power of prayers and a great medical team that have taken him to this day. But I confess, I think it's the prayers have done him most good.
And he needs prayer too as he takes on this new role. When it comes to advice, McHenry says Scalise had a few very practical words for him from his hospital bed.
Get the job done.
And that is what he's determined to do. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
A story that you will just have to see to believe. Pakistanis in Britain drugging and raping girls as young as just 9 years old. And those who are speaking out are being called racist. Stay tuned for an explosive report. The parents of baby Charlie Gard, the infant fighting a deadly illness, returned to a court in London with high hopes for a new order that will allow them to seek medical treatment for their son in the U.S. One of Britain's most prestigious children's hospitals believes his life support should be turned off. The hospital says the experimental treatment in America will not help Charlie and may cause him to suffer. But his parents want the chance to fight for his life. A judge who ruled in favor of the doctors in April says he will consider any new evidence on Thursday. It is a huge scandal in Britain. Muslim rape gangs, but you may not have heard much about it because it's been covered up by the media and also by the government. Now we're about to show you the entire story, and it is indeed shocking. Dale Hurd brings us this incredible story now from London.
Some scandals are so massive that they're simply hard to believe. But this one is true. As many as 1 million white English children may have been the victims of Muslim rape gangs, better known as grooming gangs, in towns up and down Great Britain. Policy analyst George Igler.
I mean, when you counter an issue that is just so unbelievable, just so outside your frame of reference and understanding, the immediate human reaction is just not want to believe it at all.
Perhaps even harder to believe is that while there have been prosecutions, British authorities have still not stopped this criminal activity.
There's a particular problem involving Pakistani heritage men who target young, vulnerable white English girls. Not my words, but a member of Parliament, Jack Straw, who also said these Pakistani heritage men view white English girls as, quote, easy meat.
This is when some shout racism, but here are the facts. Calculations based on convictions show that a British Muslim male is 170 times more likely to be part of a sex grooming gang than a non-Muslim. And there are no recorded instances of non-Muslims doing this to Muslim girls as part of a criminal enterprise. In one local jurisdiction, it was estimated that 6 out of 7 Muslim males either knew about or were part of a grooming gang.
What you do not have is any example of non-Muslim men targeting Muslim girls for this organized form of abuse. So the argument that this crime exists everywhere is not only false, but is being deliberately cultivated by the media and by the government inquiry that is kicking the can down the road.
The grooming gangs have been traced back as far as the late 1980s. At-risk white English girls, often from broken homes and some as young as 9 years old, were wooed or groomed by teenage Muslim boys called Romeos, and even by groups of Muslim men who hung around school gates. The plan was to make the girl feel important. She was given gifts and drugs, but she was being groomed to be a drug-addicted prostitute. Then came the gang rapes. The girls were threatened with death if they tried to flee.
It's not just sexual abuse. It is unspeakable levels of violence, victims being raped with knives, victims being raped with bottles, victims having their tongue nailed to tables. These are sometimes girls who are being picked up from children's homes on a Friday, are being raped during the course of the weekend by hundreds of men, and then returned with bleeding groins back to the children's homes on a Monday morning, and they don't do anything about it at all.
Christine's goddaughter was preyed on by the grooming gangs and is helping girls through the group Women Against Grooming.
They pulled up by the side of her in cars. They tried to get her in the car. They were talking to her, come on, come with us, we'll take you here, we'll take you there.
Were you saying that the authorities make it sound like it's the English girl's fault?
Yeah, or the parents' fault. It's your fault because you haven't got control of your child.
If you are a young English girl, particularly between the ages of 9 and 14, and you find yourself subject to the perversions of Muslim men, you effectively exist in a country where the forces of law and order don't exist at all.
Stephen Lennon, also known as Tommy Robinson, former leader of the English Defence League, was just a young boy in the town of Luton when he learned a family member had been victimized by a grooming gang.
My cousin was raped and she was found naked running from the Muslim community, aged 13. The police wouldn't help. All the police would say is she's a drug addict. She was a drug addict because they got her hooked on drugs after grooming and raping her.
Some say grooming gangs originate from a particular region of Pakistan, but others point out that the Quran encourages Muslims to take enemy women as sex slaves, and that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old wife. ISIS defends sexual slavery as Islamic, saying enslaving the families of the infidels and taking their women as concubines is a firmly established aspect of the Sharia, or Islamic law. The reason these crimes were covered up and continue to this day is political correctness. No one wanted to be called a racist. The definitive book on this scandal is Easy Meat by Peter McLaughlin, who declined an on-camera interview for safety reasons. He told us journalists would not speak about it because the perpetrators were mostly dark-skinned and Muslim. Childcare professionals used political correctness as an omerta, a code of silence concerning what the public was allowed to know.
These girls are the victims of a multicultural revolution, and it's certainly an indication of the fact that this accusation of racism is potentially the most powerful political weapon known to man. This is also an example of what can happen in a country of 60 million where the press just refuse to report, where the cries of all these agencies fail to merely discuss what's going on, and it's only going to get worse for this reason.
The cover-up was eventually exposed, yet the grooming gangs continue to operate. One victim told a British newspaper, "Nothing has changed, not in the slightest. It's still the same scale as before."
They get sexual kicks out of ruining the most precious possession that those people have, their daughters.
Stephen Lennon warned that there will be repercussions.
But there will be a lot of blood spilled in this country, and it'll be on the hands of our leaders. And there'll come a time when they'll realise what they've done. And the country's people will realise what they've done as well. They've sold us out, they've destroyed our nation, they've destroyed our culture.
Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
Alzheimer's disease is crippling more and more elderly people, but a new treatment could potentially stop it in its track. Stay with us to find out how some people are regaining their memory and living better lives. Turning to health news now, not getting enough sleep may increase your risk for getting dementia or Alzheimer's. A new study found adults in middle age who didn't get enough good sleep had more biosigns of the buildup of the negative protein that can lead to future brain problems. The results are published in a study in Neurology magazine. One thing that sleep does is cleanse neurotoxins from the brain, the type that can lead to dementia or Alzheimer's, and not getting enough sleep could limit that from happening as much as it should. But researchers caution there's no clear link between not getting enough sleep and dementia or Alzheimer's. Still, since a lack of sleep has been tied to other health problems, it is yet another good reason to get those Z's at night. Right now, 5 million Americans are suffering with Alzheimer's. That number is expected to grow exponentially as baby boomers age. But as Lori Johnson explains, a comprehensive new treatment plan is being developed that could potentially stop Alzheimer's in its tracks or even reverse it. And it is done by dealing with someone's overall lifestyle.
Dr. Dale Bredesen and his team of researchers at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging discovered Alzheimer's is caused by 36 different factors that all need to be addressed.
Imagine you have a roof with 36 holes in it. If you take a drug, for example, which is fine, that could potentially help, but it's only going to cover one of the 36 holes. So we want to be able to cover the others.
Dr. Bredesen and his team developed a series of tests to determine exactly what's causing a person's Alzheimer's.
This includes things like looking at your exercise and things like looking at your diet and your nutrition, your homocysteine level, your copper to zinc ratio, your pregnenolone level, on and on and on. We gather over 100 different metabolic parameters, and we have then a computer-based algorithm that will tell you what is actually contributing to this and then design an initial plan.
Based on those results, they formulate an individualized plan to correct the problems. Lifestyle changes like more sleep, no sugar, and stress management are a big part. They tried it on 20 people in the early stages of the disease. 19 of them regained their memory.
So it really gives us a very different look at what Alzheimer's disease is. And instead of simply saying Alzheimer's disease, period, we say Alzheimer's disease due to what? And we look for all the different underlying causes, and then we address each one of those.
Bredesen says if caught early enough, Alzheimer's can be reversed, even prevented.
For example, there are 7 million Americans who are ApoE4 homozygous. What that means is that they have 2 copies of an Alzheimer risk gene, which puts them at very high risk for getting the disease. Currently, people say, well, don't get it tested because there's nothing you can do. What we would argue is, in fact, that's changing. There's a lot you can do.
More trials are planned in the U.S. and in the U.K. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Listen to this. A teenager camping in Colorado found himself waking up being dragged by a bear at Glacier View Ranch. Dylan said he heard a strange crunching noise in the middle of the night. It turns out it was the bear's teeth chewing on his skull.
It was just a loud crunching sound and a lot of pain. And then I realized I could hear the bear, I could smell him, I could feel him, and it wasn't stopping. It was growling.
Dylan's fellow campers did everything they could to scare the bear away. Dylan, who happened to be a wilderness survival instructor at the camp, beat the bear until finally he let go. After being dragged 10 feet by the bear and sustaining deep puncture wounds on his head, Dylan says God must have had a hand in his survival. True indeed. Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I hope you'll join me in this prayer of gratitude. Father, I am grateful your promises are always greater than my problems. I trust you to help me to focus more on those promises than the problems. With that word, make this a thankful Thursday and a great rest of the week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about always at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you back here tomorrow, everybody.